Hi, this is Tom at Talent Guitar Works. I'm a repair facility in Southwest Florida. I work with a lot of working musicians down here, and I'm also an OEM builder. I do some custom builds and some stuff around the shop. So anyway, we're going to talk about one of my favorite, nearest and dearest things, and that's Fender Strats with tremolos. How Jeff Beck set up his tremolo and used it so he could use the techniques he had developed for it. And the first thing I'm going to say is a lot of these Stratocasters come with the tremolo decked, meaning this plate is flat on the top of the body. Also, you'll find that at times this is a 6-point, so each of these 6 screws have shoulders on them. Those shoulders are where that trem plate's supposed to ride. So these screws cannot be torqued all the way down, or it's going to deck the tremolo, or possibly just kick it up a little bit but not allow it to move. So you want to make sure these screws are backed off a little bit. There's 6 of them, your trem is not going to fall off. Now Fradua, who's an Italian luthier, does a really good job of showing the post-it note method of getting the tremolo up to where it's supposed to be in a playable position to use both ways. Everything in that video is spot on. One thing I want to add to it, this trem claw. And the reason I'm saying this is string tension equals spring tension. Carl Verheyen, who is the guitar player for Supertramp and several other bands, and a session musician out in California who uses his trem a lot, came up with this. He said, I don't need too much tension on the springs, otherwise I lose my tuning stability. I'm not able to do what I want to on the guitar and have it return to perfect tuning as soon as I release the trem. So he came up with the string tension guides. Now online you can find these guides. They're going to tell you how many pounds the string is applying in tension on the guitar when it's tuned to its whatever note it is, E, A, D, G, B, or E. So I calced it up for a set of Ernie Ball Slinkies, 10s, right? Came up to 97.84 pounds of tension. Now, the tension was divided by the E and the A string, the D and the G, and then the B and the E. And that's because I'm using a 3-spring method. The 3-spring method is used to float the trem. You notice all the springs are in a straight line. They're not all convergent in the center. That's not the way to set it up. I know I've seen dozens of guitars like that. You're working against yourself. The claw was designed to hold up to 5 springs in case you wanted to deck that tremolo or block it so it couldn't be used. If you're wanting to use the tremolo, 3 springs. Now, the first thing you should do when you go to set these guitars up is put a 10-degree angle on the tremolo claw. And by taking my handy little protractor here and setting it inside the trem cavity, you'll see that matches up, right? Now, I need more tension on the E and the A string than I do on the B and the E. There is a 5.11 difference in pounds between these strings. So, by easing the tension here, this allowed Jeff Beck to play the way he did. And we're going to go over that right now. Jeff, when he played, and I'm just going to set the tremolo in and move my camera, kept his pinky on the volume pot, put his ring finger underneath the bottom of the tremolo, his middle finger on top, and then played with his index finger and his thumb. Now, if you tighten this trem all the way up and you try and move it like Jeff, up and down using just these 2 fingers, you're going to find it's impossible to do. If you set your trem claw at an angle, it's less of a problem. Now, Jeff was more than just a guitar tinkerer. Jeff was a mechanic, Jeff was a welder, Jeff built parts for his hot rods freehand using plasma cutter. He changed necks out on guitars all the time. The Jeff Beck Signature Series guitar would have been the first Signature Series Strat released had it not been for the roller nut. Jeff Beck was using a Wilkinson roller nut at the time. He didn't like the ideas that Fender came up with. The Eric Clapton Strat was released. Later on, they came back with the Wilkinson nut, and then later the LSR roller nut. Now, what does that do for tuning stability? It reduces friction on the nut. If the strings are passing through the nut as you're using the trem, you either have to widen the nut slot, use lube in the nut slots, or basically go to the roller nut. The strings can stick, especially in plastic nuts and bone nuts, when they're wound strings, just by activating the trem. And this is what prevents the guitar from coming back into tune. By using the plastic fender nut or the bone fender nut, it still puts that guitar in a tuning stability situation. Excuse me. And what that does is causes people to tighten these springs. Now you see what we're chasing around here? You're going to tighten the springs here so it doesn't stick in the nut. You can get a Fender roller nut, an LSR roller nut online, anywhere from $28 to $50. They go on Fender Stratocasters with 1 11/16 inch widths at the nut, and they can be installed by a luthier in 30 minutes. The cut has to be done to widen the nut slot on the fretboard, going up the fretboard, not behind the nut. So that's one of the critical things. Now the LSR roller nut comes with a bunch of little metal shims, so your string height is going to be perfect. You don't have to worry about nut slot height anymore. It's all done for you because the strings are rolling on those ball bearings. I've got 2 Stratocasters with LSRs on them. Never had a problem with them. So anyway, this is Tom from Talon Guitar Works. Look for Fradia's video online, how he uses the Post-it notes to lift the tremolo initially. Just remember to set your trem to about 10 degrees before you do that. And he'll slide Post-its in there until he can get that G string down to an E note, played open, and go from there. So basically, it's all you need to do. It's a simple setup. It sounds confusing. Try it. Tell me what you think. If you like the video, subscribe, and hope to see you next time. Bye.